Hey everyone, welcome to the first devlog for Erebus Maw, a new roguelike I'm making to experiment with randomly generated dungeons driven by actual lore and story. I'm drawing from a bunch of games that I enjoyed, so hopefully you can find something that you enjoy in this game as well. I think it's crucial to offer players new randomly generated choices on each run. This approach encourages mastery of mechanics and thoughtful strategy rather than relying on memorizing specific routes. By keeping the experience fresh and unpredictable on each run, players stay engaged for longer, and they'll get a little bit more value out of the time that they spend playing. Another less commonly named game when talking about roguelikes is Call of Duty Zombies. You start fresh every round and lose everything on death. But they managed to cram a surprising amount of story in with their Easter eggs, which is what I'm going to be trying to do with this game. The keys to the game will be randomized dungeons, turn-based combat, deck building, multiple classes, and environment interaction. But we're going to focus on the first three for now. It may surprise you to know that with only these 4 tiles, you can actually make reasonably complex dungeons. We need the spawn tile, which is at the bottom on the left, the normal floor tile on the top of the left, a corner tile which can be rotated into any orientation, and a wall tile. I'm going to be using a variation of wave function collapse to generate these dungeons. I won't give a full explanation of what it is because a lot of people have done a much better job on YouTube than I can. The end result is that we get a randomly selected set of tiles that all fit together properly. Taking a deeper look at one of our tiles here, we can see that we're storing a reference to the prefab, along with a brief description and the name of the tile. Those directions, positive and negative x, y, z, represent the sockets that will connect to the other tiles around it. We can look at the wall tile for a better example. It can connect to floors 0 on the positive x direction, nothing on the negative x direction where its back is facing, and needs a wall in the positive and negative z direction called wall negative x, which means the wall is on the negative x side. A configuration is valid when all the socket types are the same. Here we can see 4 tiles meeting in the middle all around the same floor kind of socket tile. We would consider this socket type 0. On the other hand, this would be considered invalid because there is a wall trying to connect where there is no wall on the source tile, so our generator would never generate this configuration. That tile in the top right could not be picked when the center tile is just a floor. We set some initial conditions for the room as well. We surround it with air, represented here with tile index 1, to make sure that we don't have any hanging or dangling elements on the sides. Using just those 4 tiles and those few rules, we can get a generation like this. Now, I'm sure some of you picked up on the fact already that no matter how many tiles you generate, you can never generate anything other than a basic room. It can't have any interior walls, it just has to be 4 corners and some number of walls between them. And that's because we have no way to do anything other than right angles, 90 degrees. To get around this, we're going to need a new corner piece that allows us to do 270 degree angles. We can do 90 with our corner, 180 with the wall, so it's just a flat continuation, and 270 with the pillar piece. This allows us to do much more complex room generations. I won't make you sit through a whole nother montage, but this is the level of detail that we can get in a room generation when we're using these pillars in addition to the other tiles that we had before. I took my little character controller for a spin around inside the dungeon, and it felt kind of convincing, like it could have been in a Diablo sort of game. But at this point, it was time to start working on how I would lay out the dungeons, and I did this by generating a whole bunch of randomly sized grids and then pushing them apart from each other one step at a time. We now have a whole bunch of separate boxes, but we need to connect them together somehow. It seems like the most common way that people do this is to generate the rooms and connect them all, and then do what's called a Delaunay triangulation, which is to find all of the connections that don't overlap each other. You can see here that none of the connections overlap each other, they are just connecting rooms directly. We then have to use another algorithm called Prim's algorithm to find the fewest number of connections between rooms that we need to make sure that no room gets isolated. We can also leave a few random connections in just to make it interesting if we want to. The plan is to have teleporters connecting the rooms kind of like Diablo, rather than having the rooms connected by hallways, because whenever rooms are connected by long hallways, it ends up feeling just like a hallway simulator. Putting all of this together, we can generate a whole bunch, in this case around 20 random rooms, spread them apart, run our room triangulation algorithm, which will again connect all of the rooms together, and then we can fit our dungeon generator or this wave function collapse generator into all the individual rooms as they're being triangulated. This gives us a pretty convincing dungeon for free. We don't have to design anything ourselves, and a player gets a new experience every time they go through. One thing I didn't mention that you're seeing happen here is that some tiles are getting deleted after the room has been created. And this is because when we're randomly generating rooms, it's possible that some tiles become unreachable. We determine which ones have become unreachable by running a flood fill from the original tile, the spawn tile, in each room. Any tiles that are unreachable are discarded so that we're not rendering them and players don't see somewhere that they can't get. This is the whole process from start to finish. If you're curious about any of these, there are a lot of amazing videos on YouTube about them. I will end up having to go into some of them in greater depth anyway in future videos because they will come back. For now though, this video has already taken long enough to make, and I need to get it out. As of right now, I'm a fair bit further along in development than I am on these videos. So the next two videos will be combat and movement, followed by adding more details to dungeons. Combat and movement will be how cards are played and how the character is going to be moving around the dungeon, and adding more detail to it means adding a little bit more life, like lighting, crates that you can break, doorways, moving between the dungeons, things like that. So this will be an upgrade to the algorithms that we used for random generation in this video. I hope you found at least something interesting in this video. If you're interested in the more technical side, stay tuned because the upcoming episodes will have a little bit more detail in them. But for now, thanks for watching. Hope to see you back on the next one.